I'm David Middleberg, Vice President of Hospitality and Healthcare at Berkshire Blanket and Home. We've been supplying luxury bedding, blankets, and soft goods to some of the world's most discerning customers for over 30 years. We're backed by the global reach of Sumac Textile and Sinomac, one of the world's largest industrial groups. I've spent more than 3 decades in global sourcing and supply chain management, and if there's anything I've learned, it's that a perfectly smooth supply chain is about as rare as a pillow that everyone can agree on. My role today is to keep the conversation focused, the timing tight, and maybe slip in a joke here or there. So let's get started. We've assembled a great panel, and rather me to tell you about them, I'll let them share a bit about themselves. Why don't we start with Dorian?
Hello, my name is Dorian Murphy. I'm the Director of Luxury Accounts with Avendra International. At the time of this call, overseeing about 30 independent luxury hospitality brands throughout North America and the Caribbean. It's definitely a pleasure to be here.
Thank you, Dorian. Matthew?
Hi, everyone. My name is Matt O'Malley. I'm the Senior Director of Procurement, Projects, and Design at the Club at La Estancia in Odessa, Texas. I have about 35 years of procurement experience in the hospitality realm, starting with Hyatt, then Fairmont, then Peninsula Hotels, and now where I am today. Thanks for having me.
Very happy that you're here. Scott?
Good afternoon. Thank you for inviting me to the panel. Scott Warzinski here, hospitality procurement at the Mark Hotel in New York City. About 30 years of hospitality procurement behind me, several properties, all independent. Thanks again.
Thank you for being here. So let's kick off the discussion by talking about the ripple effect of tariffs. I'd like to defer to Dorian for your input on this.
Sure. Over the past maybe about 6 months or so, procurement has hit a little bit of turbulence just as a part of some administrative things that America is setting forth with tariffs. And because of the rise and the fall and the increases and the decreases in tariff rates on key trade partners within America or within the world, we're seeing that have a ripple effect on procurement here in the United States, and definitely with the groups that I manage. We're seeing things like extended lead times on goods coming in from overseas. And we're also seeing clients have to turn away ships at port just so they're not incurring these increased fees. And so that's just a couple things that we're seeing. And I'm sure as we go throughout our conversation, we'll talk a little bit more about the ways we can mitigate some of that's happening.
Thank you, Dorian. Scott, would you like to weigh in on this?
Oh, yeah. I would just like to add that the current trade policies have created uncertainty and delays in the market. Tariffs are a moving target, and communication with your vendors is critical right now. Most visible signs are vendors going out of business. Well, how are we mitigating this? Some vendors are going out of business. Some vendors are offering to share the cost with us. Some vendors are assuming the cost, and some vendors are passing the cost on. That's why, communication with the vendor is so critical right now. And things to consider, during these tariffs, how to approach them and how to negotiate with your vendor. Things to consider are the length in time with the relationship that you've had with the vendor. How much future business do you have with that vendor? How much current business do you have? And what's the potential for that business? And so that's kind of how we've encapsulated that first.
I understand completely, and I have to say that all of the companies, particularly those that were on a fence to begin with financially, going out of business is tragic. It's a lot of lost jobs and a lot of pain for people. and certainly the ripple effect of that in and itself has got to be difficult for the hotels to manage. Matthew, what are your feelings on this?
I think a lot of what we're dealing with the tariffs now is simply an extension of what we dealt with COVID, right? A lot of the challenges are very similar, right? We see vendors coming and going. We see vendors unable to perform. We see extended lead times. We see price uncertainty. So a lot of those lessons in resilience are applying today. So I think that's actually helping us quite a bit get through what's happening today. I think that those relationships and communication, like Scott mentioned, are hugely important. Making sure that we're communicating well with our vendors, that we understand their challenges, they understand ours, and we work together to find a mutually agreeable solution. I think our relationships with our GPOs, be it Avendra or one of the others, are also extremely important right now in helping keeping our properties at the top of the list with some of these suppliers, making sure we're taken care of first. And that's the role of that GPO for us as well, helping us mitigate the cost as well as some of those other factors that are coming into play right now.
What I'm hearing from all of you is that this is one of those times where you really find out who your friends are, much like COVID and when cotton skyrocketed and the freight disasters that we've seen over the years. So it's one of those times when you have to lean on your friends. Our industry, that is the luxury hospitality market, has unique vulnerabilities in this. And I was wondering, Scott, would you mind giving us some insight into that particular area?
Absolutely. Thank you, David. First of all, our luxury client is very discerning and they're very brand loyal. And with that said, many of the products that we source are manufactured and distributed outside of the United States. And so changing brands isn't really an option for us. And, the luxury hospitality person is not real sensitive to, well, they're insulated. Let's say they're insulated from these type of fluctuations within the market. A lot of our luxury guests measure their wealth in terms of percentages. And so they expect us to kind of follow their trend and withstand these market pressures so that we can remain brand loyal and we can maintain our guest profile because our guests are very loyal.
Dorian or Matt, would you like to weigh in on this topic as well?
So the luxury client is special in that the guests of the luxury client are high paying, they have high expectations. And because they have that for the hotel brands, that means the hotel brands have to bring in highly specialized, highly curated, high touch items, right? And so what does that mean? That means that your high-end hotel isn't just going to, I don't want to call them run of the mill, but they're just not going to just the average place to get things, right? And so, well, what does that mean, right? Because at the end of the day, these things are all coming from, largely coming from overseas and coming from impacted areas. And so that means that you kind of have to diversify your supplier base. You have to look for alternate items, right? So it may not be that highly specialized item that you've seen, but you have to have 1A, 1B, 1C items to bring in, right? Because at the end of the day, the client does have a lust for high touch, and not having those items isn't an option.
Mm-hmm. So if I'm hearing you right, it's if, for example, if that silken pillow cover that they're so used to has been, due to the tariffs, been pushed out of the market, perhaps there is something like a Supima cotton product that is equally luxurious, but from a different way that can be taken from a country that's not so significantly impacted as would the silken product. Is that what I'm hearing?
That's absolutely what I'm saying.
Okay. Matt, would you like to weigh in on this?
Yeah, I think part of this is putting our own egos aside. You know, we've developed what we think is the best bed top. And maybe there is another solution out there that would be suitable. I had read years ago that the average person can't tell the difference between a 300 thread count all cotton and a 500 thread count all cotton. And if that's truly the case, then can we go to a 300 instead of a 500? Is that doable for us? Can we use a higher thread count in our suites only? Is that an option for us? And what's the story that goes with it, right? So showing a guest that we care by putting attention to detail in whatever it is we're doing. Is there another way we can do that besides thread count? Is it in the embroidery on the bed top? Is it on adding a monogram to a pillowcase with the guest's last initial that offsets that care that we were showing previously into another way? I think that we also need to be careful about partnering and about new suppliers. So partners, you know, I'm always looking for a partner who's going to grow with my business, who wants to start with me when I'm small and grow with me as we expand over the years. But those relationships you can't put all those eggs in one basket. So finding new sources and finding out who else is out there and what they're doing is also critically important. So whether that's taking the time to do a HOTEC, a BITEC, a BD match, a NRA show, a NEWH show, whatever those events are, whatever those conferences are out there, are becoming more and more important to see what's new and what those new options are. And the last point I wanted to make on this is, I call it cost substitution. If we really want that silk pillowcase,
Yeah.
and we can't find the savings on the silk pillowcase, can we find it somewhere else? Can we change our slipper from an EVA sole to a dot wrap sole? And would that cost offset it? And would a guest notice that? So those types of questions become really critical.
Sure, and one of the benefits that we have at this time from taking on what you just said a step further, we're on the other side of that BITEC table. As a manufacturer, we've gone to improving our technology. For example, we've gone to instead of just adding more weight or a more expensive fiber or higher decoration on a blanket, we've added temperature regulating, for example. So maybe we don't have to invest in virgin wool blankets. Maybe we can use something on the synthetic side, but with a client or guest comfort in mind as a shift. If I'm hearing you right, that's
100%. I mean, technology is always changing. And one of the examples I want to kind of highlight, imported bottled water, right? Those costs are about to spike on us. And so what could we do? And at the club, we ended up partnering with a company called Boomerang. And they're here in the US, and they provide sanitation and bottle filling and filtration. So we're bottling our own water. So we have private label glass and aluminum bottles based on where we're using them. And we consider this to be equal to or better than the imported water, not only for cost, but for our image with our clients and guests.
Sure. And you reduce your carbon footprint, right?
Yep.
That's a great point. And, you could also build that into the marketing package in the property and have them share some of the cost. Maybe you give it out at, make it available at the front desk or in the rooms as a complimentary piece.
Mm-hmm.
But that's a great idea.
You know what, David? And that reminds me of something that I worked on with another one of our clients where, we're talking about revenue generation, right? And so I worked with a client to put these specialized beds that are able to see when you're in REM sleep and to adjust the softness or the firmness or the temperature in the room, right? And so when Matt was talking about, do we need to rethink our bed top or could we do something different? How about throwing a bed in that room that is a room type that you can charge a little bit more for, generate some revenue that can also help offset those costs as well.
Sure. And at the same time, you could pick up a guest who normally wouldn't come to your property because that particular thing was not available to them. So I think that's a wonderful idea. And as long as we're talking, Dorian, can you talk a little bit, as this is your area of expertise, about the value and impact of GPOs in helping us through this trying time?
Sure. So here on the Avendra side, we pride ourselves in, the data that we're able to generate from our over 18,000 clients that are spending on all of our programs. I mean, the Avendra footprint covers about $25 billion in annual spend throughout our clients. And with that, we just have a lot of information at our disposal and best practices that we're able to, share with clients. And what we're recommending during this time is just continuing to pay attention, right? So, just a week ago, I might have surely recommended India as a place to get those highly curated luxury goods, those handcrafted luxury goods. And I'm still inclined to do that, but a little less so because the tariff rate went up another 25% just over the weekend due, to political pressures and things that are going on in the industry. And so, the first thing I'd say is just paying attention to what's happening in the news and planning your purchases, helping to, make those purchases when the time is right. We're recommending, that you leverage like Vietnam for furniture and Eastern Europe for, natural filled goods, and Mexico for millwork and things like that. And, we just have our fingers on the pulse of it. The last thing I'd say is, I talked about the data a little earlier and, tapping into your GPO to understand the trends and to understand what your particular hotel or group of hotels is doing is so important, right? Are your hotels buying a singular spec of an item and aggregating that spend together to get the best price? Or is every hotel kind of doing their own thing and doing what works for the geography that they're in? One answer to the question isn't necessarily wrong or right, but it depends on what you want to do. And if cost savings is what you are really looking for, aggregating your spend over a few suppliers is a better bet than everyone doing their own thing. But really, your GPO can help you understand where you're aligned at the corporate level, right? Because a lot of your procurement folks who are sitting on property are managing the truck that's coming in, or they're coordinating with the chef about what the chef's needs are for the operation and that kind of thing. And your GPO really can provide you a 30,000-foot view of what your particular procurement landscape looks like.
Dorian, you bring up a great point, as well as the fact that all of the information is provided for you right there on your vendor portal through the Avendra website. As well, there's a universal credit application that lives on that database. So any new vendor, any vendor you engage can use that universal credit application and extend terms right away. So there's no vetting process, there's no COIs, all of that stuff has been taken care of through the partnership, which I greatly value. And I know I've mentioned this before, I'm new to the market here in New York City. And so having a suite of vendors that are vetted and insured and trustworthy is golden to us.
Matthew? Well,
yeah, I think Dorian kind of hit the nail on the head when we talk about education as far as what's happening in the marketplace. And when I look at the cost reports and the forecasts that I'm seeing, whether that's a quarterly food or monthly food or an annual, helps us with budgeting, helps us understand what's happening, helps us focus on where to put our energy in what are going to be our challenging areas. So I think and I don't want to sound like an ad for Avendra. I've been an Avendra customer since 2001. There are others out there. I have worked with some of them. They're great also. But my experience is largely Avendra. But those type of reports, those types of quarterly meetings with our regional reps who come in and say, here's a new product coming from this linen company. Here's a new towel that uses a polyester core with a cotton loop, and it helps with durability and longevity. So you may not be saving a penny, but you're getting longer use, right? Like that type of information is priceless.
I have to say a couple of things. First of all, Dorian took time out of his very busy schedule to be here, so I don't mind saying good things about Avendra at all. It's great to have them here, also because of the length of time in the industry and the area of expertise that they bring to the table. Dorian, you talked about timeliness a little bit, and one of the things that came out just as a matter of fact, out of Geneva, we got the message that as of August 12th, the 24% tariff on China is being suspended for 90 days. Only the 10% will remain in place. But if you think about the length of the supply chain, that if you order it today, it's going to take 75 to 90 days, particularly if you're working through layers. You have the importer, the distributor, the importer, the exporter, and then the factory. This may be one of those times to, and I know this is incredibly self-serving, but this is one of those times to look to people like Berkshire who are factory direct. That's another relationship. But then Matthew also brings the interesting point that he's not in a position to bring in container loads to his hotel. So tying together with Avendra to get to manufacturers like us to be able to offer that general purchasing power is really a way to overcome this whole challenge. It's one of the great avenues that can be taken. I would like to talk a little bit with you about cost averaging. Scott, you want to kick that off for us?
Cost averaging helps us as a small property because, again, and let me just put a caveat out there. Avendra and I haven't always been bosom buddies. Now, I've been in this industry quite a while, and from California to Florida and now New York, it hasn't always been Avendra. It is here and it is now because it's the right solution for my situation, and so that works very well. But cost averaging for us means we can find the supplier within the portfolio that will finance the project and warehouse it locally and then bill us as ship, and we can save on that overall cost without having to take the hit right away. So that's where it means the most to us. Yeah.
Matt, you want to weigh in on this?
I would echo what he just said as far as helping manage those costs. But I think also the other part of that equation, again with a GPO, helps us put pressure on a supplier to provide that warehousing, right? I might not be able to do that on my own as a small single property, but with the weight of Avendra or another GPO behind me, I can. So I think that's hugely important as well. And with cost averaging, I kind of alluded to this before. We always joke in luxury, I never save you $1. I save $1 that we can then turn around and spend to improve our product or improve our service. So kind of looking through that lens and finding those other options for savings and those less conventional, it may not be $1 save, but it may increase longevity or things like that. Those are key players in this equation as well.
And it's an interesting thing also to consider design. That is to say, that 7-year rotation when you have to renovate your rooms during a time like this is not the time to completely gut and renovate your rooms. So perhaps a refresh, a renew is more in order. Adding color, adding throws or decorative pillows or something along those lines. We a lot of white bed out there, and with that comes the opportunity to add runners and throws and shams and things like that to provide a fresh look to the guest without having to take the steepest investment in a complete reno.
I would like to jump in on that too for just a second. With design, I think On a recent project, I was exposed to Round Top, Texas, which is an antique market. It's the largest antique market in the country, apparently. I had never been and hadn't really played with antiques very much. But what we found was by going to something like that for side stations in a restaurant, right? If the design allows us to mix antiques, I can buy a credenza at an antique market for $3,000. If I go to one of my furniture manufacturers and have one custom made, it's $12,000, right? So am I able to improve my design, make it feel more residential, make it feel more luxurious by incorporating antiques that save me money?
That's brilliant.
Those are some great dynamics, great ways to look at the cost containment aspect. I mean, it may not be strictly speaking cost containment, but it brings something to mind. On the other side of the coin, instead of spending $1,200 on those patio heaters, where your property is located right next to the water, and you know that every 2 years you're going to replace those anyways. Maybe you find something a little more value driven. I don't know how many heaters I've seen piled up outside of the engineering department where they're just waiting on parts. Just, you know what? Those are almost disposable after a couple of years. You live by the beach and you learn it. But, that's one other kind of avenue that I look at that, might make sense in certain circumstances.
Something like a fire pit, maybe.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely.
Dorian, where are your thoughts on this?
Hearing Matt and Scott talk about this, the one thing that comes to mind is education, right? Because we're talking about, like, just for the example of in-room refresh with runners and shams and things like that. Over time, those soft goods, or even talking about OS&E for food and beverage, china, flatware, glassware, at some point a restaurant and a room is going to want to refresh at some point. And there always comes the time when your buyer is saying, well, where do I get the thing? Or someone wants to kind of step out and get the thing that they think works. But that thing that they get may not be a part of the original buying pattern for the hotel. So now you're adding additional SKUs, or you might be buying outside of an agreed upon program that your corporate team may have set up. And so now we're paying a little bit more for these soft goods or the OS&E items, where they were already situated on a program where you can reorder some items and continue operating your operation. So education for the people who are buying in your hotels is one aspect. Now, there's another aspect that might be a little bit more controversial, and I am no longer in the business of hotel operations, at least directly, but education for ownership groups. I just was at one of my clients' hotels.
That was a nice filter right there.
And one thing that we were discussing was, ownership's idea of what the revenues should be, how much revenue should be generated. And in a climate like this, you'd like to think that, an owner might know all of the things that the hotels are experiencing that might be potential roadblocks in meeting that revenue. And who am I to step in front of someone who invested all of these millions of dollars into, but at the end of the day, I think there needs to be an education for ownership groups about what exactly is going into making their hotel run how it should, and what might be impacting an operator from reaching lofty goals that may be set by ownership groups. So anyway, in a nutshell, I think that there has to be an education on both sides, from the operator, who is having to procure these goods and remain as lean as possible, and from the ownership group who has the expectation of the performance from the operator.
I couldn't agree more, and I think that was incredibly well stated. We're getting towards the end. Gentlemen, I'd like to ask each of you to take a moment and give us your final thoughts. Why don't we start with Dorian, because you're already off mute.
There we go. Well, Well, I mean, as we spoke about here, I'm the Avendra champion, right? Because I work for the brand, but I really do believe in the value that GPOs can offer you, especially as you navigate the turbulence of the tariffs or of COVID or of reflagging your hotel, all the way through to opening a new hotel, reflagging a hotel, operating your hotel. And Avendra provides just such a large suite of different goods and service options that could really help you out. So I would encourage anyone listening who does not have a relationship with a GPO to start that relationship. Largely, it doesn't even cost you anything to be a part of a relationship like that. So let's get out to it and let's do it.
Thank you, Dorian. Scott, would you like to give us your final thoughts?
3 words: agility, communication, information. You have to be able to move quickly in this atmosphere. As we mentioned, the tariffs are a moving target. Communication, stay close to your vendor. Make sure that you know what they know. And information, read, listen, look, use all sources. Just because you don't like a certain news station might be the reason that you should listen to them. So wherever you can get your information, I say read everything and take in all the information possible.
Thank you very much, Scott. Matthew?
First of all, I'll just jump on what Dorian and Scott just said in terms of all of their points, completely valid. I think one piece that we skipped over a little bit is developments in software, especially procurement and accounting software. Again, we're looking for those savings that will help us offset these costs. So some of the AP functionality and invoice functionality that some of the big procurement software systems such as Birch Street and Rikio and those guys are bringing to market helps us save a substantial amount of labor money, so that can help us. And I think, agility and unconventional sources, I've mentioned 2 already. I mentioned Boomerang, I mentioned the antiques. The last one I'll mention, in the club that we just opened, we took 2 of our restaurants and decided to hire 2 potters to create handcrafted pottery for their restaurants.
Oh, wow.
Now, would I ever do that in a big box hotel that's doing thousands of covers? Probably not. Was it less expensive than a lot of the luxury brand china that's on the market? Yes.
Wow.
Is this a fantastic story for my guests? Yes. Are we bringing those potters to the club to do member pottery lessons as a add-on? Right? Yes.
Wow.
So we're creating something that is completely new that I hardly ever see in the market, and that's all in response to what are we going to do? I don't want to spend that much money on XYZ brand of china. So again, we're able to go above and beyond what the norm is and save money and create story and connection with our guests.
These are for anyone watching this. These are 3 of the most brilliant experts I've ever had the opportunity to speak with, and I couldn't agree more. The agility, the creativity, and the sense of calm are what's needed right now. It's not time to push the panic button. We've navigated times like this before, and I hear a lot of worried voices out there in the market. Listen to your experts and trust your gut and lean on your friends. So I'd like to thank the panelists. Thank you so much for being here and joining us and sharing with us your knowledge. I would like to thank ILHA for providing us with this venue to have this much needed discussion. And we at Berkshire Hospitality and Healthcare, Berkshire Blanket and Home, Sumac Textile, and Sinomoc would like to express our gratitude and good luck. And we are available to you. I'm a phone call away, and we'll be glad to help.
Thank you for having us.
Again.
Meet the hotel industry's biggest leaders at Inspire Luxury Hospitality Conference. Back for its 16th year, Inspire 2025 is held in November in Prague and December in Las Vegas. It's the premier event for luxury hospitality. Land deals, learn strategy, and explore innovation. visit us at inspire.ilha.org.